maths tutorials is the variable, is the vector of the my data frame that I'm looking for to be the x values. Maths exam grades, that should be exam grades, okay, is the vector that I'm looking for out of my data frame to be the y values, and I'm going to use g on points. Okay, so I hit return on that. And there you go, we get the plot comes up here. Maths tutorial values are along the horizontal axis, and maths exam grades are along the vertical axis here. If I want to have a look at the relationship between maths exam grades and, let's say, exam and English exam grades, well, I'm going to do a ggplot. Okay, and I'm going to pass in my data frame. Okay, that's where I'm going to take the data from. From an aesthetics perspective, we're going to define the x-axis to be equal to our maths exam grades, okay, and the y-axis is going to be equal to the English exam grades. Okay, so English exam grades, okay, is going to be the y values, and once again we're doing a scatter plot, so it's a g on points that we want to plot. Okay, and I just hit return on that, and we get a relationship that looks something like this. It looks like there's a negative relationship between your maths grades and your English exam grades, if that makes sense. Yeah, we could put a line on top of that by saying plus g on line. Okay, g on line. Okay, where's line? Here's g on line. Okay, what that'll do is it's have to do sort of a polygon for us. So you actually see with ggplot we can actually add more and more layers on top of the ggplot to give us different types of structures. You can sort of see here that it's going down in this particular in a negative, as a negative slope, which would be indicative of a negative association between maths exam grades and English exam grades. Sorry, I'm getting a bit carried away here because this particular tutorial, this video is not about ggplot. It's about data frames. Okay. So we have the structure my data frame. Okay, looks like this. We can extract out particular vectors. Okay, so for example, I could take out the maths tutorial scores and I could store them in a vector. Okay, I could take out the English exam grades and store them in a vector, and I could use them later on. So let me just say English. Let's say English. Let's say grades. Okay. Is equal to, it's going to be my data frame dollar English exam grades. Okay, so I know we've already created the vector English exam grades earlier on. Okay, but at this particular stage I'm just going to extract it out again and store it in this new variable called English underscore grades, and you'll see what happens. So that's how to take it out, I think. So let's call English grades. Okay, and when we call English grades, you can see we're getting the values 87, 76, 34, 38, 25. That's exactly the values that we had in the English exam grades column. Okay. So guys, once again, this was just a quick sort of introduction to data frames. They're very, very important when it comes to the R programming language, the R Statistical Programming Language, and they're very, very important as well when it comes to ggplot. Okay, and they're very important when it comes to lots of different things that you might do within the R language. But basically, just to keep in mind that a data frame is just a column. It's just a sequence of column vectors. Okay, I'm probably wrong in saying that here. Okay, I probably shouldn't say that. Okay, but I like to sort of think of these particular. It's an object. The overall thing is an object, but it's made up of individual objects that have a particular structure. Okay, but what we get here anyway is we have a vector that has a frame that has many columns, and them columns are basically vectors. Okay, say if I want to add in, let's say, the gender of each of these particular individuals. So on row 1, that's an individual scores across 4 variables. Yeah, and let's say I want to put in their gender. Okay, so let's try to do that. Okay, let me just clear this screen here. Okay, so I want to put in their gender. So what I'm going to say is my data frame. Okay, my data frame. Okay, let's say gender. Okay, let's give this new variable a name, this new column a name, this vector a name. Gender. Gender is going to be, let's combine together. So there's 5 values in that particular frame. So let's say the first person is male. Okay, let's say the second person is male. Okay, let's say the third person is female. Okay, let's say the fourth person is male, and let's say the fifth person is female. what is important is that we put in the same number of values and the same number of rows needs to go in. Okay, so when I do this here, I get something that looks like this. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to just call my data frame again, my data frame, and you actually see that we've got a gender variable in here now. Okay, I wonder what type is the gender variable. So let's actually figure out what that is. Yeah, so let's say class. Okay, class my data frame. Okay, $ gender. Let's see what that has been put in as. Okay, so when I hit return, oh, it's a character. Okay, so it's a sequence of characters. Now, what's probably important, especially when we're doing statistics, is that these particular variables like gender, yeah, okay, we're probably going to use them as what's known as independent variables, yeah, okay, and typically our independent variables are what's going to create our groups. Each independent variable has a number of levels of measurement. In this case, there's 2 levels of measurement. There's the males and there's the females. But in this case, this variable is nominal. So actually, I want to force this particular variable here to be a factor. Okay, this column to be a factor. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say my data frame, gender. Okay, let's just find gender. I'm going to update it to be dot as factor. Okay, and I'm going to pass back in the values that I had for the gender values. Okay, so I'm going to pass back in the gender values. Okay, so all I'm saying here is this: is that will you update my data frame's gender column? Okay, and what I'd like to update it with is I'd actually like it to update it with the current values, but I'd like to coerce them values from characters to be factors. Okay, and this is going to be important for us later on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit return here. Let's just output the data frame again to the screen. We still have gender there. There's no change in it. The values are exactly the same. But let's check the class of it this time. Okay, so let's say class my data frame gender. Let's see now what the class is. So you can actually see now, now the class is a factor, okay? And that's going to be important for us, especially when we want to do plots and we want to break the plots up into maybe using facets, and we want to maybe have a plot of the male distribution and the female distribution. It's important that we define our variable to be measured at a factor level, or we define it to be a factor, an object that's of type factor, yeah, if that makes sense. Okay. So guys, once again, this was just a quick introduction here. The next video on data frames is going to do something a little bit more complicated. We're going to randomly generate some values and we're going to store them in data frames, and then we're going to do some interesting things with them. But once again, my name is Jonathan Lambert with the Mathematics Development and Support Service at the National College of Ireland, and I hope that this video was in some way intuitive, and more importantly, I hope that was actually helpful for you. So thanks for watching.